In today's video, I'll be revealing the 3 most confusing enrichments that most beginners to clay.com find super difficult to learn and to understand and to discover. And they're so situational that you only need them in some cases, but when you do need them, a lot of the time you just get stuck and you give up on a clay table. So the goal of this video is to walk you through all 3 of those enrichments and reveal them to you and show to you how you can go about using them on a day-to-day basis. So in the first example, let's say we have some data in table 1 over here, and we want to send this data into table 2, which is empty over here, as you can see. How do we go about actually transferring all of this data? Well, I'm glad you asked. And simply put, all you need to do is click on actions in the top right-hand corner. You can type in send data, or if that does not exist, then you can say a write to other table. And over here, you should be able to see the enrichment which says send table data. So you can start this so that next time you don't forget it, and you can just basically click on that over here. And over here, the first thing they would ask you is what table do you want to send this data to? So in my case, I want to send this into table 2. So I'm going to select table 2. And then over here at the bottom, you can just select what kind of data you want to be sending. You can either select every single column, or in my case, I just want to send just the LinkedIn profile of the person on its own. For that, I'm just now going to click on save and run 11 rows in this view. We should be able to see on the right-hand side over here that it just sends the data. And if we check table 2, voila, the data arrives. But spoiler alert, you need to click into it and you now need to add this as a column. So let's click add as a column. And now this brings us nicely to the second enrichment, which is somewhat confusing. Because let's say we have just the full name of a person. How do we actually go about pulling all the rest of the data from the other table as well? So let's imagine for a second that we just got this data and we want to populate it with the other fields as well from this other table. So in this case, we'll click on actions again and we'll use the lookup multiple rows enrichment, lookup multiple rows. Let's click on that. We can star it so it's easy to access next time. And then over here, the first thing they will ask us for is the table that we want to search. So I'm going to say table 1 lead list A, because that's the name of the other clay table. That's why we need to label them really well. The target column, in this case, I'll select it to be the LinkedIn profile of the prospect as well. And I'm going to make sure that it contains the LinkedIn profile of the prospect here. And I know it's kind of mislabeled because in this case, it's the full name of the person, but just bear with me for the time being. So what we're doing here is we're first of all selecting the table where we want to pull this data from. We're then saying this is the specific column that already exists in that table. And we just want to make sure that we pull all the data from this specific row where this field is the same as the field in our table. Now we can click on save and run 11 rows and it says you must include a row value to search for. So let's scroll down over here. I believe it's because we selected the wrong row. So I think it's this one that we were supposed to select. Now let's click on save and run 11 rows. There you have it. Now the full record was found. If we click into the records, we can see all 11 fields. So we can now add it as a column. We can have the company name, the company website, and all of the other cool fields that we've spent so much time probably researching in the previous table. So let's just recap quickly. The first thing that I showed you is how you can go about sending data from one table to another. The second thing that I showed you is that you can basically use this lookup multiple rows enrichment in order to pull some additional information from other tables. And thirdly, the third most confusing one that I know a lot of people struggle with is the HTTP API enrichment. So I don't have too many tips on this one, but essentially, if you're not familiar with this just yet, if you click into HTTP API and if you click into configure over here, you have 2 main options. The first option that you have right now is over here, you can describe the API functionality in natural language, and Sculptor, which is like the AI behind Clay, will help you find the right endpoint and it will try to help you set up the parameters for you. So in this case, over here, you can just tell it, for instance, to say, I want to connect clay.com to serper.dev as an example. And then over here, we just need the documentation URL. So in this case, I'm just going to say serper.dev documentation. And in this case, you could find the documentation somewhere on the website here. So you can just literally, I'm just going to copy and paste the URL of the company here. And now if I click on generate API connection, it should basically go and try and find a way to set up the HTTP API connection for me. And that's the beauty of this new Sculptor functionality. I know it says required inputs missing, but I'm sure you get the point. So over here, it tells us exactly the fields that we need to populate in order to make this happen. Now, secondly, if that doesn't work for you, what you can do is you can click on browse templates instead. And if you click on public over here, you should be able to see every single person that publicly shares or every single public templates that Clay shares with its users for all the most common tools that are connected to Clay. So for instance, Bounce Band that helps you to, I assume, verify email addresses and all of these other tools, they all have an existing HTTP API template. If a tool does not have a HTTP API connection over here, then the chances are it's maybe a bit too technical for you. So unless you've got some sort of like software engineering background and you're familiar with webhooks and APIs and that kind of thing, then maybe just go do like a little Udemy course on how to go about doing that. But 99% of the time, what I come across is that either this works over here if you just filter for public templates, alternatively, just type in a quick prompt over here, copy and paste the documentation URL, and a lot of the time it should be able to basically connect the HTTP API. It should be able to create that HTTP API connection for you. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like, make sure to leave a comment down below. And if you have any requests for future videos or any other enrichments or things that you find confusing inside of Clay, just let me know and I'll be more than happy to record a separate video on that. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one. Bye.